2 and 3. Welcome, everyone. I'm Lori Hines with Just Among Friends, and this is another episode of our weekly interviews with highly sought after guest speakers who come and join us to share their experience in working to build bridges between Christians and Jews. And we are very excited about this episode. I want to just give a shout out to our sponsors. That's going to be Ann Stacy with TexiansForASafeIsrael.org, Mike Isley with Texans for Israel, and myself, Lori Hines with A Taste of Israel. I want to say, please check out my friends' websites. We've come together to do this new initiative, which is Just Among Friends, and we're very excited to build our circle of friends, to enlarge it so that we're on the same page, to align our hearts with Jerusalem, Israel, the land, and the people of Israel with no hidden agenda. I want to, before we get to today's speaker, I want to make sure that all of our friends are muted. So friends, please mute yourself. And want to also give a shout out to our upcoming speakers. Let's see, we have some upcoming speakers. That's going to be next Sunday. We'll be hearing a great interview that I recorded already. Will not be live. It'll be a recording of an interview with Bob Odell. Please make sure you watch that. It was incredible. And it did not end there. In fact, we have a project we ended up joining forces on to do because of this interview with him. So this is going to be good. After Bob Odell, the following Sunday will be also a recording of an interview we did recently with Laurie Cardoza-Moore. If you don't know her, she's with Proclaiming Justice to the Nations. Amazing speaker. You're going to want to watch that. Followed by the next Sunday, 3 Sundays from now, will be a live interview with a very, very big Zionist out of Norway. Britt Lode will be joining us from Norway. So we're very excited about that. So that's coming up. But now let's go to today. Today, we're super excited to welcome our friend and distinguished guest, Rabbi Yehuda Glick, live from Jerusalem. Welcome, Rabbi Glick. How are you today?
Wow, shalom from Jerusalem to all of you. I'm very excited to be here tonight with you.
Wonderful.
I tell you, Lori, that I'm jealous of you. You're in the most beautiful house in the world.
I agree.
Very, very, very close friend. And when I say friend, in every single possible meaning that there is for that word, she's a real, true embracer, encourager, lover. She makes us happy at all times, and she what you can only ask for a friend. And of course, I will never forget the day and evening I spent at her house, and her heart is like the biggest one there is existing in the universe.
No
so that
true
was like
words.
A little short.
Yes, no truer words have been spoken. Maybe we should do an episode, Ian, just to do a tour of your home and show them the proof of what Rabbi Glick just said, because it's true. Before we get started, let me introduce you to our audience, Rabbi Glick. I have your bio here in front of me. I want people to know, in case they don't, about who you are and where you've been and how you got to this point that you're at now. Which is you're a walking miracle, and people will, if they don't know that, they will after this interview. So Rabbi Glick was born in Brooklyn, New York, and at the age of 9 immigrated to Israel with his family. His father was involved in the establishment of a new medical school. They settled in Beersheba. And so, but after graduating high school, Rabbi Glick went on to study rabbinical studies, and he ended up graduating from college. He holds a BA in education from Jerusalem College and an MA in Jewish history from Torah College. He's also a licensed tour guide, which some of you may not have known that. He went on to become the director of a program for immigrants from the former Soviet Union. He also has held various posts in the Ministry of Aliyah and Immigrant Absorption. He's been the Director General of the Temple Institute, the chairman of the Temple Mount Heritage Foundation, and the director of Haliva, which is an initiative for Jewish freedom on the Temple Mount. In 2014, Rabbi Glick had a brush with death. There was an attempted assassination on him by a Muslim terrorist. He was shot 4 times point blank in the chest in Jerusalem. And that attack on his life stemmed from his public advocacy of human rights, including the right to pray for all people, Muslims, Jews, Christians, and others on Jerusalem's Temple Mount. As a result of his tireless efforts, in April of 2015, less than a year later, it was announced that he was receiving the 2015 Moskowitz Lion of Zion Award. This award is given to outstanding Israeli men and women who act from a feeling of personal responsibility, vision, and national mission, often while sacrificing their personal welfare and even endangering their personal security. Before I finish, I have a couple more things to say about your bio, but I want us to hear what I just said, because what he just came from in the last 24 hours is a testimony to what this bio is about. He was just recently trying to help somebody and he got himself into a predicament because he was trying to help someone. Okay, more to his bio. In 2016, Rabbi Yehuda was elected to the 20th Knesset as a representative of the Likud party. During his term, he was successful in passing historic legislation outlawing the advertising of smoking products, all in an effort to save lives. As a member of Knesset, he became the senior most official in Israel dealing with outreach to the nations and connecting them to Israel, Jerusalem, and the Temple Mount. During his term in office, he met and gave lectures every week with Christians and other tourists from all over the world. In February 2018, he was given the prestigious Knights of Quality Government Award for the way he conducted his work as a member of the Knesset. And in 2019, Rabbi Glick founded the Shalom Jerusalem Foundation, whose goal is to take Zionism to the next level, connecting the nations to Israel and Jerusalem, being a light unto the nations, and bringing about the prophetic day on which the Temple Mount will be a house of prayer for all nations. We are honored to have you, Rabbi Glick. Thank you.
Lord, thank you so much for that introduction. I really would prefer if you guide me on what path you want me to take. But before you do so, I'll be happy to share with you just in a few words, because as you heard in the description of my bio, my life is never boring, and that means whenever it becomes a little boring, we try to find new channels and new paths, and we let the I would say mission consciousness embrace us and take us to wherever the Lord wants us to go. So before I begin, though, I just want to pray to him and thank him for protecting me for so many years, and for guiding me, and for trusting me, and for bringing his light to my heart, and for bringing through this light the ability to recognize and get to know so many wonderful people.
Okay, wonderful.
As I said, right now, this week on the Jewish calendar, we commemorate the destruction of the temple, the first and second one. And when we read through the prophecies, we see that a temple is not just another building. It's not a piece of land of real estate. It's something that has a deep meaning. And today I'll even try to share with you the verses. Lately, I've been very much involved in studying. On my table is the book of Micha. And Micah in chapter 7 puts a very big emphasis on something that I think that unfortunately we in our generation see the need to deal with it. And I want to just read a few sentences from Micah 7, and from there take you on to where I've been being involved lately, because God, as always, has brought me over to deal with topics that he felt that now is the time to deal with them. And in Micah 7, where Micah is describing what he finds what is leading towards the destruction of the temple, he says, woe is for me, for I am as the last of the figs, like the gleanings of the vintage. There is no cluster to eat. The first ripe fig my soul desires. He's describing an allegory of him going down to the field and looking for the fruits. He has a vineyard, he has a tree with figs, but the trees are empty. And then he goes on in verse 2, the pious have perished from the land. There is no upright among men. They all lurk for blood, each one hunts his brother with a net. But then he goes on, and I would want to read to verse 5 and 6. Believe not a friend, trust not a prince, from she whose lies in your bosom guard the opening of your mouth. For a son disgraces his father, a daughter rises up against his mother, a daughter-in-law against his mother, her mother-in-law. A man's enemies are the members of his household. But I will hope in the Lord, and I will wait for the God of my salvation. My God shall hearken me to me. And Micah is claiming that the disconnecting from the temple is bringing a crisis in family life. When you can't have trust even inside your own family, when families are falling apart, and children that do not learn to respect their parents, and spouses, and the idea of family is losing its, I would say, its holiness, is the time to rebuild the most sacred place in the world, and that is a home, families. In the last few months, I've been involved, as the Bible teaches us, before the building of the temple is the building of the orphan and the widow. Orphans and widows is the project that I've been involved with in the last few months, because the prophets teach us that that is an opening, an introduction to building God's house, is building the house of those who have lost the protection, the shield. When somebody loses a spouse or loses a parent at a young age, it's a collapse of a house, it's a collapse of a family, and the Bible teaches us not to open an orphanage, not to collect all of the orphans and put them into one institute, but rather to strengthen not the orphan child, not the widowed mother, but the widowed mother together with the orphan child as a family, because family is the source of the blessing of God to humanity. And the fifth amendment in the 10 commandments talks about respecting one's parents. And God says this is the center. This is the way a person recognizes his connection to God, is through his connection to his parents. And the first community a person belongs to is his family. And when family is falling apart, and we see more and more families are breaking apart, this is the time to strengthen the orphan and the widow. This is the time to strengthen the values of family. And from here, to lead to a building of a temple. Because God says, if society is falling apart, then no temple is going to last. And Micah says in chapter 3, he says, don't trust and say, oh, God's in our house, in our hand. Chapter 3, verse 11. People are doing whatever they want, and then they're leaning on God and saying, oh, God's with us. Nothing can happen to us. And God says, no. God says, no. I want you to rebuild me a temple, but I want that temple to be a foundation for society. I want that temple to be a foundation for a better society, a moral society, a society that is based on caring and not forgetting. And therefore, what the Bible tells us, it's not only send your charity to an orphan or to a widow, but embrace them, bring joy to them, encourage them, feed them, satisfy them. It says when you're celebrating in your holidays, call them up and include them. When you're harvesting your fields, include them, not because they're poor. Sometimes a widow can be a rich widow. There's no difference. She's alone, she lost her spouse, or a widower lost his spouse. And that situation is a situation of a house that has fallen apart. And God says, you build these houses and then build my house. My house is a house that announces to the world, one God. So the Shalom Jerusalem Foundation has now partnered with the Israel organization for young widows and orphans. And next week, right after Tisha B'Av on the 8th, 19th, I was flying for a 2-week to Florida to spend organize a campaign for this revolution of teaching the world what it means of taking care of the orphan and the widow. Because what happens very often, we say, okay, let's establish an orphanage, but establishing an orphanage doesn't build the family; it breaks the family. When a person passes away, then taking the child out of the house is just another brick that you're taking out of the house. What needs to be done is to strengthen that house. So this revolution, which we're trying to teach, what the Bible is teaching us, what Torah is teaching us, don't help that house to fall apart. Strengthen it, rebuild it, fasten it, and that's what we're doing. And today, the Shalom Jerusalem Foundation, which really concentrates on connecting the world to one God, on connecting the world to God's palace, on connecting the world to the idea of one God, is that we are all part of the families of the earth. When God took it upon Abraham, he says to him, I promise you children, I promise you descendants, I promise you land, but I want you to bless, it doesn't say all the nations, the families of the earth, the families of the earth. And this is our connection between Jews and non-Jews, because Abraham was obligated to bring this message to all the families of the earth, because the importance of family. We saw earlier in the time of Noah, and that family was breaking apart. People were taking wives of others. People were breaking apart family. And the Torah teaches us, no, God chooses upon Abraham and says, I want you to bring that message of family to all the families of the earth. Wow. So today, when we are studying together, Jews and Christians together, and building this linkage, this cooperation, this partnership, it's a partnership of what I believe and what we in ShalomJerusalem.org believe, that the concept of announcing one world, one God, and turning Zionism into a universal phenomena is also about respecting, upgrading, strengthening the orphan families. So right now we're involved, as I said, in this campaign in the ShalomJerusalem.org. As of this week, we read the book of Lamentation. For Lamentation, in the very first verse, compares Jerusalem to a widow. A Jerusalem is like a widow. Why? Not because she's poor, but because she's forgotten. Because she's neglected. Because all her friends have turned their back upon her. So you who are facing your faces toward Jerusalem are part of strengthening the widow called Jerusalem.
Oh my goodness. You need to be, oh my goodness, Rabbi Glick. That is the most beautiful, heartfelt presentation I've ever heard. Prayer, speaking, truth, whatever we want to call this. It's amazing, you know? And you know why it's amazing? Because not only in itself, but here we are in the 9th of Av now, right? The 9 days. And what you're doing surely can only bring joy, can surely only turn their people's sorrow into joy, which is what we're trying to do over the 9th of Av, is turn it into a day of praise and joy. So just hearing you say this, bringing your two organizations together, what joy you're going to bring to the world. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for what you're doing. You know, I have to tell you, Ann and I were talking earlier about the history of America and how much, Ann brought this to my attention. She's a former history teacher, and she was bringing to my attention how much influence our country has had from the Hebrew values, the values of the Hebrew people, the Jewish people, from our foundation. And this family value that you're giving, that you're promoting, especially with widows and orphans, how our country needs this, how our country needs this. It's, you know, the non-Jews for sure, but I think it's such a blessing. So thank you for that. Tell us a little, let's go back a little bit, because I want to go back to, when did you start working with, you know, working to bridge the nations to the Jewish people? Because what you're saying is a message for the world, not just for the Jews.
Yeah, well, the truth is that, like always, all of these things happen in what we call coincidence. Coincidence are these things that God suddenly decides that He has a mission for you, and he just finds a way. I've been ascending Temple Mount for several years, like almost 30 years. I've been ascending Temple Mount on a regular basis. I started off in 1989 the first time, and it was going up there like once every few months. But what actually made the major change, I was, as you said before in my bio, I was involved in the Ministry of Immigrant Absorption, and I was director of the southern region of the ministry. And in 2005, unfortunately, the government of Israel promoted what was called the disengagement plan, and they uprooted thousands of Jews settlements from the Gaza region and from the northern Shomron. And I was serving as the director of the southern district of the ministry, and I felt that I couldn't be part of the government of Israel at the time. So I resigned. I was the highest rank civil servant who resigned from the government because of this program. And there were a lot of write-ups about this resignation in the newspapers, local newspapers, and the websites. At the time, there weren't very many websites. At 2005, it's hard to believe, but at the time there were barely any news websites. But there were articles about me in all of those websites. And at the time, the Temple Institute were looking for a director, and they approached me. And that time and beforehand, and when I was working in the Ministry of Absorption, I was working in a city called Ashkelon, which was in the south. So I rarely got to Jerusalem. But now I was offered a job, and I was going to be working in the old city of Jerusalem, coming into the old city of Jerusalem every single day.
Wow.
So slowly I started going up to the Temple Mount on a regular basis. And I was shocked to see how few people were coming to Temple Mount. Tourists barely came there. Jews barely came there. And anybody who came there was actually facing very disgusting kind of incitement, harassment, violence. And in the afternoon, I was for almost every single day, I was the only Jew who would ascend Temple Mount. So I took upon myself every single day to go up to Temple Mount alone every single day in the afternoon. But then at one point I said, I can't continue this way. I can't continue this way. And I stopped and I said, listen, I'm going to start finding people to contribute busloads of people coming to Temple Mount. The Temple Mount is crying, is waiting for people to come. So whenever all tourists that would come to the Temple Institute, I would say, guys, if you came to the Temple Institute, you didn't go to Temple Mount, it's as if you didn't come to the Temple Institute, go to the Temple Mount. And I was encouraging more and more people until I reached a point in 2009. I left the Temple Institute and I established the Temple Mount Heritage Foundation, which was there majorly to encourage more and more people to visit Temple Mount. I'm so happy that we've succeeded. I said when I started ascending Temple Mount in 1989, there were 100 Jews who ascended a year. In 2019, we had 50,000 Jews. And just in the last few years, in 2014, we had 180,000 tourists. In 2019, we had 700,000 tourists who visited Temple Mount. And it's changing. We see the change there. The more and more people come to the Temple Mount, it's going through a change. People are understanding. You can't come to Israel with a Bible in your hand without going to the place where God says, this is the place I rest my divine presence. Without going to the place where all religions have begun, and without going to the place which God says our destiny is to turn the place to a house of prayer for all nations, where people on this place will take their ammunition and turn them into agriculture instruments. We'll turn them into things that will bring, instead of killing, will bring life and flourishing and growing into the world. And so the Temple Mount has to, it's our obligation to raise the awareness of one God, one world, one Temple Mount, one Jerusalem for the families of the earth. The families of the earth. You're on mute. You're on mute. Lori, you're on mute.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I'm sitting here thinking about what you said, and it's just such an amazing connection, which I had never made before, that the scripture in Lamentations talks about Jerusalem being a widow, and how the whole effort you're trying to do is to make the Temple Mount accessible for all people of prayer. And that's it. You have to have a home. God has to have a home. And so that's such a beautiful analogy. I'm so impressed by what you have done almost single-handedly and at the expense of your own life almost, and lots of great, tremendous sacrifices. So thank you for all you do on behalf of the nations. As a voice from the nations, I just say thank you for what you're doing for us and for all people to be able to have a way to go and visit God's home. Tell me something about, I remember right before Corona.
In Lamentations, the widows and the orphans are mentioned twice, in chapter 1 and in chapter 5. In the first chapter and the final chapter, both. And for the first chapter, it says Jerusalem is like a widow and an orphan. And in chapter 5, it says that we were like orphans without a father, and our mothers are like widows. So the impact that Jerusalem has, the lack of Jerusalem after the destruction of Jerusalem, gave people a feeling that they themselves are orphans. So rebuilding the Temple Mount is for God, who calls himself the Father of orphans, is an obligation to establish His house to establish a house for His children. And we are there. We are here to put those two things together. Jerusalem, Abraham is father of all nations. God is the father of us all, and to unite us all together, the families of the earth.
Amen to that. Thank you. So powerful. So, right before Corona, you were going around blowing the shofar on the Temple Mount almost daily. And I would follow you every day, and so, as many all over the world would, and blow the shofar with you from their place in the nations. And it was such an incredible time to be a part of that, even virtually. I don't know, have you been able to start that up again? Where are you at with that?
Well, right after Tisha B'Av, where as soon as I come back from my trip to the States, I'll be coming back, and we're starting the month before Rosh Hashanah, and we will once again begin the Let the Shofar Blow on Zion project. And the Let the Shofar Blow on Zion project is really a call to all nations. And it says that last year we did a big thing about it because of Corona, where Joel teaches us that when you have a time of sorrow, of a plague, the thing is to go and blow the shofar on Zion. And we surrounded the gates of the Temple Mount. We blew the shofar on all sides of the Temple Mount, on all the different gates of the Temple Mount. And we're actually trying to fulfill what the prophets say. And blowing the shofar is not just a physical thing making noise. It's a call. It's the simple call of when God creates man. It says He put His spirit in man. And when we blow the shofar, we're taking the spirit that God planted inside of us, and we're blowing it out to Him. We're calling out to Him that we want this recycling of His spirit to once again, that we're going to calling out to Him. He's going to hear, and He's going to serve as our cloud. As God took us in the desert, He was our cloud, and He accompanied us throughout every single one of the stops in the desert. And we want to feel Him as our cloud again. By blowing out the shofar, we take the spirit that He has planted in us when He created us in His image, and we're taking that spirit and blowing it out to Him and saying, God, here we are for you. Hineni.
Hineni, Hineni, here we are. That's amazing. And it's so true. I'm not kidding you. When you did that campaign last year, right before Rosh Hashanah, I look forward to it every day. So I hope that increases and you have more people following you along this coming year. Let me ask you, because you received so much pushback on your initiative to make the Temple Mount a house of prayer for all nations, including being almost assassinated, how do you navigate that? How do you, continue doing what you're doing despite the obstacles that you have to overcome? What motivates you?
Look, there's one thing that motivates us all. I know that many Christians call it the revelation. I really don't have, don't recognize I unfortunately didn't experience it. An experience that I really felt that God was taking me and talking to me and speaking to me. But I call it, and I mentioned it before, mission consciousness. When a person lives his life understanding that he's here to serve the Lord, when a person understands that he's here and he starts looking around and he says, God, whatever you want me to do, show me. And that when God takes us, just like I said, I'm now dealing with the orphan and the widow project. I'm dealing it because God did something very great to me after I was widowed 4 years ago, and 2.5 years ago I remarried. Today is my anniversary of 2 years, 5 months, and 9 days. So
congratulations, Basil Tov.
And my wife Hadass, my wonderful wife Hadass, who was a widow at the age of 29. She had 4 little kids. The oldest one was 7, the youngest one 7 months, and she had to cope with all that by herself. And 15 years later, she established the organization, the Israel Organization for the Young Orphan and Widow. And if God made us marry each other and made me the luckiest person in this world to have Hadass as my wife, then he wanted me to deal with that. So he always shows us how to do it. He either shows it us by the obligations that are in the book, or he shows it us through life. And when we see things through life and we know that it's his guidance, then the obstacles are minor. Sometimes those minor obstacles are painful. Sometimes the minor obstacles are something that cause us to cry out to the Lord, to pray to him, to call out to him. But we always know that the way he's guiding us, that's where he wants us to go. So when you wake up with a faith like that, knowing whatever has happened to you is by him, and that's why we call the organization Shalom Jerusalem, shalomjerusalem.org. The concept of shalom is you're in peace with God. You're in peace with God, and you understand that wherever he's taking you, he's the tour guide of the journey. He is the one pulling the strings, and you can feel the peace and the harmony with him. And that's what the shalomjerusalem.org, the Shalom Jerusalem Foundation, is all about.
Okay, that's amazing. Well, there's no greater motivation than being called of God to do something, being given an assignment. Let me ask you one more question before we wrap up. And I do want to have a little small Q&A session in case some of our viewers who are here with us today have some questions. My last question for you, Rabbi, is as a voice from the nations, as one from the nations, I turn to you and all my fellow Jewish brothers and sisters and look for guidance on things, on spiritual things and on values based in the Bible. What would you say to those of us in the nations? What can we do to get behind you and come alongside of you and align our efforts, our prayers, our whatever with what you and Hadass are doing with building a home for God and supporting the orphans and the widows? What can we do?
Wow. Look, first of all, you're doing so many great things, and each and every one of you is really doing so many great things. We, thank God, in the past year, Hadass and I have established 2 centers in Israel for orphans and widows, one in Jerusalem, one in Afula. We're on the process of establishing a 3rd one this summer, right? It's opening in August. And that's why we're staying in America only for 2 weeks. We're coming right back to establish the 3rd one. And we hope that by the end of next year, we will have 10 centers. Now, these centers, as I said before, they're not centers where we take care of orphans. They're not centers where we take care of widows. They're centers for the orphan and the widow. They come together. They have volunteers who are helping the kids with homework, who are playing with the kids, who are giving activities with the children. And the widows and the widowers are sitting around and talking to each other, sharing their experiences with each other. And when a child needs his mother or his father, he runs to get a hug from his mother and father, and he goes back to activity. So he knows, and he hears all the time people that are telling him what a great mother he has, what a great father he has. And therefore, it strengthens the child's linkage to the parents. And this concept is totally, there's nothing like it in the world.
That's right.
Very often, organizations take care of the orphan, take care of a place for the widow. The concept here is no, we are taking it, we don't allow to come leave your child here and go shopping. No, you sit around, sit with your feet up in the air, feel 1 day a week with just the fact that we're giving you a little bit of spoiling you and satisfying you. And at the end of every meeting like that, we have a homemade dinner. And it's a full homemade dinner. these widows who every single day, no vacation, have to cook their dinner for the children, have to be there for the children. There's no support, no aid. So one day a week they can come, put their foot up in the air, and have somebody cook for them dinner. And the only thing we would have loved to do is to bathe the children also, but that we can't do that there at the center. But and again, and every week we have more and more orphans and widows that are coming, and they're all telling us how meaningful this just a few hours, it's 4 hours a week that they're doing. And aside from that, right now we're starting a new project of sending volunteers to go to the houses of the widows and to give them a few hours of help in the house, in the place where is there strength in the house, to give them a few hours of aid. You know, it's not a cleaning lady, it's not washing their dishes, but to be there with the kids, to be another set of hands, and it's all being guided by psychologists and by professionals, pedagogic professionals who are teaching us strategics of how you teach a child who in front of his eyes at all times is the fact that he's an orphan, that his father passed away, his mother passed away. And it's something that we're actually developing these strategies. And everything we're doing is accompanied by research, by a lot of psychological support. And we have the heart of my wife Hadass, and I think that we're making a revolution, and we hope, our dream is to bring this message to the entire world, because this is the concept. This is what the Torah talks about. The Torah will always talk about, not the orphan, not the widow, but the widow and the orphan. They're one. Strengthen them one as a one, and you will see that you're giving strength to the house. The way to strengthen the orphan, strengthen his mother, strengthen his father, and you'll see that they will be strong.
Wow. It's powerful. It's a huge initiative, but you're right. It's very different, the concept and the approach that you and Hadass are taking to this. I've never heard of
Hadass is the chief of staff. I'm just a small little soldier.
She's the chief of staff. Well, I can't wait to meet her and have dinner with her when next time we get to go to Jerusalem. Yeah, we would love that. Fantastic.
She's coming with me. We're going to be in Tampa, Florida, and Venice, Florida, and we'll be speaking and I'll keep you updated.
Wonderful. Yes, thank you, Rabbi. Before we go, let's just see if anybody has any questions or any comments. Please wave at me, let me know so that you can unmute yourself. Okay, Rick and Grace from Canada. Hi, friends. What's your question?
Okay, I want to go back to the Knesset. I understand, Rabbi, that you were involved in initiating a Bible study in the Knesset, that tour groups that came to visit Israel could come and participate in a prayer time in the Knesset. Is that still functioning?
Right now, there's a new Knesset, and we are working right now on establishing it. It will start functioning probably within a month, and I'm on it. I'm on it because I think it was a beautiful. It was a beautiful initiative, because we had Jews and Christians studying together, and it was really something wonderful. It was broadcasted all over the world, and we're going to do it. We're going to do it again within another month, I believe.
Okay, good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the encouragement, and God bless you all. Yeah. You're from Canada, I understand, right? Richard, and who's your wife's name?
Rick, you're muted, Rick. Unmute yourself.
Trying to unmute. Okay, yes. Richard
and Richard
Great.
and Great. Shalom,
yeah.
Richard and Grace.
Yes. Yeah, we have been,
God should fill your lives with His grace. And tell me a few words about yourselves, just like one or two sentences.
Well, we have been working as volunteers with Bridges for Peace, and have taken tour groups to Israel, and we were wanting to take that group to the Knesset for the prayer gathering. It was to happen in March.
Next time you come, let me know, and we'll make sure we have a gathering. Next time you come, let me know. We'll make sure you have a gathering. Okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll connect you, Rick and Grace, to Rabbi Glick on email, so we'll connect you.
Okay, thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, Ari from California. Hi, friend. What's your question?
Shalom. Shalom from
Shalom.
California. We've actually met
Wow,
before.
that was my fastest trip to California ever in my life.
Right. Yes. Yeah. In and out very quickly. And yeah, so we met a few years ago and everything. And we had a great time when you came to San Jose. Well, first of all, I have a praise report, and just to let you know, there's many people that are aware of the importance of temple worship, and that it's a corporate thing that we all need to nationally, that we all get together, and that if we all come together, that Jerusalem becomes that epicenter. And so the awareness is awakening for many of us. And I just want to thank you for helping us to raise that awareness. But my question is more political, with the political climates changing in both Israel and America. What do you feel that where it's going? You feel it's like the Zionist, is it hindering it, or is it helping where we're going, the political climate?
Ari, first of all, your name is Ari, which means a lion, but in the background you have a bear. So I'm not sure if you're a lion or a bear, but I like that shirt you got there with shalom on it. Look, my master's is in history. You can ask me about the past. The future, I'm a little bit less professional about predicting the future. I can tell you that God has guided this world for many years, for many centuries, and we know that every single development is a challenge for us. Just like COVID was a challenge for us, and we learned a lot of things about what COVID is all about, and what the importance of family, the importance of routine, the importance of understanding that we have different ways to worship the Lord. I'm sure the new upcoming developments, both in Israel and in the United States and around the world, are going to teach us something. And it's our obligation every single day to ask ourselves, what does God want us here? In my eyes, I mean, as I said, Hadassah and I have taken upon ourselves the mission of the orphan and the widow, the family. The ShalomJerusalem.org is exactly emphasizing that right now. But everybody should jump into the boat and see where he fits, where he believes he can bring that light of God to it with something that fits his activity. So I'm not here to give out assignments. I believe that person can open his eyes and open his heart, and God shows him the way exactly where he wants us to go.
Thank you, Ari. Thank you. All right, Pastor Swaggerty, you can unmute yourself, my friend. What's your question?
First, I wanted to say to Rabbi Glick, it's a pleasure to be on the Zoom with you. I doubt that you remember, but I did meet you briefly at the Knesset Bible study. I'm a dear friend of Rabbi Tully Weiss and Donna Jolie. I'm in Central Ohio and would like to ask if your travels will be bringing you close to Ohio in the foreseeable future.
Well, first of all, I have representatives in Ohio. I have a brother living in Cleveland and an aunt and cousins in Cincinnati. That's right now my representatives in Ohio. In the near future, I don't see myself coming to Ohio, but I do plan on probably, hopefully, if the COVID will be behind us, to be coming to the States once every 2 months. And I will be happy to plan a trip to Ohio as well. And if you believe that we can find partners there and develop partnership with there, you're welcome to be my connection to Ohio and to wherever you, as you understand. Just send me an email, and I'll be happy to be in touch, and we can think about it together. We're somewhere next year to build a tour to Ohio. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
I'm located in Columbus, and I'm senior pastor of Charisma Life Ministries for 37 and a half years now. And when Rabbi Tully's in town, he speaks in my church, and we have a gesture there with the Holocaust Memorial Wall in it. And we've hosted several people from Jerusalem and throughout Israel, and we'd be delighted to have you come when you're available.
Okay, I please make contact. Take from Lori the contact information. Send me an email, and we'll start corresponding, and we'll build it up exactly when God needs it for us.
Very good. God bless.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you so much, David. Thank you so much, King David.
Yes, let's see.
My pleasure.
Okay, we thank you, Pastor. We have another question from one of our guests, Mr. Steve Crewman. If you'll please unmute yourself, Steve. Welcome. What's your question, sir?
Hello, Rabbi. Hey, I apologize. I tuned in very late, but this sounds so exciting. One thing you said touched me, and I wanted to ask you a personal question, if you don't mind. You mentioned widows. A distant relative of ours was killed in the Mumbai attack, and I tried to find some way to help her, and all I found was a dead-end link. And I was just curious if you know if Rabbi Ben Zion's crewman's widow has been well taken care of, or if there's anything we can do to help her.
Well, thank you, Steve. And first of all, I want to calm you down. There's no death penalty now for coming late to Zoom sessions, so you can feel safe on that side. I personally don't know Rabbi Ben Zion Fruman's family, but as I said, in Israel, we have 30,000 orphans, 12,000 widows. If you want me to personally look in to see what's going on with her, send me the exact information. I will be happy to look in and see where she's doing and how their family is coping. We personally reach out on a regular basis to almost 3,000 families, and we will be more than happy to reach out to as many as we can here in Israel. But we're calling on a call to all the world. We want all communities, every single church, every single community should establish and care and remember the orphans and the widows of its community, and that's our goal in the long term. Where once again the emphasis is on the strengthening, not the orphan, not the widow, but the orphan and the widow together.
That's great. Sure, I'll send you the link. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Steve. Wonderful. Okay, I think we're done. I don't see anybody else that has a question. One more glance. Let me see. Oh, Doug Harrington. Hi, guys. You guys you're welcome, Steve. Doug, unmute yourself. What's your question, guys? Welcome.
Well, this is Jeanette. And
hi, Jeanette.
Hi.
Drive carefully.
Thank you. We're parked. So even it's been several years, and as we were thinking about this, I was reminded that I was a widow, and I've been well placed. But in our work, we often come across, as well as the widow and the orphans, because I'm capturing that. What is the word, and how do you find yourself working with those who, the divorced husbands and wives who are taking care of their children, sometimes as orphans? And so there are abandoned. What are those falling kind of into the same category?
Well, in general, usually a divorced family, they have a father and a mother. They're not living together. Yes, there are certain cases, certain exceptional cases where one of the sides doesn't take responsibility and just flies away. And I think we as a society should first of all try to deal with this issue from the source. I don't understand how people think it's moral that a person can bring children to the world and then forget about them and take off his responsibility. We should have a way to enforce, if somebody brought children to the world, he has to take responsibility. What does it mean? You got divorced from your wife and you go find some other girlfriend and you neglect your children. So I think we should first try to heal the root of this issue. At the same time, look, when I refer to widow and orphan, of course, the widow and the orphan are the stereotype, the prototype. Afterwards, we will be able to learn from what we do with the widow and the orphan to exceptional cases. But I think our society is very forgiving to husbands and wives who bring children to the world and throw them away and they continue on their life. You brought children to the world, you should take responsibility. And I think that's a thing that we as a society, and one of the things when I talk about family, one of the things that I believe in is that trying to heal this issue, that a society understands. You wanted to get divorced, okay, get divorced. But no situation where you get divorced and you go on with your life and you neglect your children. What is that? What kind of? How can we allow something like that? When you buy a car, we force you to take out insurance on your car because we say you can't leave a car and without taking responsibility. So if the situation is that like with a car, then the situation should definitely be like that with children. If you brought children to the world, you should take responsibility. And therefore, I think that before we start dealing with how we're going to help those who are alone, and we definitely think we should make sure to bring out this message and say it loud and clear that it's impossible that a person brings kids to the world and he neglects them and he starts a new life and they couldn't care less about the children that I brought to the world.
Thank you very much. And just briefly, it is for the widows and the orphans. Are you talking? How are you helping the widowed husbands, the widower? I guess is the word.
For us, when I speak about widows, it's widows and widowers at the same.
Okay, good.
I thought so. They said we encourage them, we strengthen them. Look, we're not an organization of charity. I mean, we don't give out milk and bread. We don't give out socks and blankets. We are an organization that deals with strengthening the family. We deal with bringing in volunteers to the house to help them out. We bring in happiness to the house. We feel that if we strengthen, whether it's psychological support, when we strengthen the mother, strengthen the father, what we call a person who went through a loss of a shield. If we strengthen that person who went through a loss of a shield, we feel that our goal is to make them, put them on the roads that they should be able to stand on their own feet. It's a process, it's a procedure, but we believe in it, and that's what's most important. But tell me, what age were you when you became a widow?
27.
27?
No children, but I was 27.
27.
Yes.
Okay, we're sending you a big hug. Even when you don't have children, a loss of a spouse is something that is definitely something very painful, and it's a dream that falls apart. But I'm happy to see that you built a new life, but you'll never forget that the experience of becoming a widow, I am sure.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. It's beautiful. Okay, I think we are at the end of our questions. I don't see anybody else with any hands up.
We have to be because at 11, at another few minutes, I have a call from Kevin Jessup, who's taking care of my trip to Florida, and we have to.
Okay, we are done. Thank you. Safe travels, Rabbi Glick. We are so grateful for your time tonight. Thank you so much.
Shalom Jerusalem. ShalomJerusalem.org is our website, and you can be in touch with Lori and get my email. I send love from Jerusalem to all of you, and I thank you so much for your heart, for your light. And Stacy, Ann, just because you didn't speak doesn't mean I didn't see you. We saw you, and we're sending her our love. Shalom, Ann.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank
Shalom.
you, Rabbi.
Love you. Shalom, everybody. Bye-bye. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye.